Rivas. Yellow flags are out and waving here. We're on the backstretch now, slow and steady. And Frankie Mossman now joins me up in the booth. Frankie, from when we last commentated the B main to the C main, the track looks even more wet. Apologies there. We'll get that sorted. But nonetheless, on to the back straightaway and entering the last corner now. Onto the front straightaway. Yellow flags out, letting the drivers know. Let's slow on down here because this first corner can get pretty hairy when the track is nice and wet here. So let's see when the drivers decide to punch the throttle here. They've decided it now. Green flag in the air. Let's see how the drivers can get around the first couple of corners here up the hill, sliding up the hill towards turn number 2. Hold on to it. One driver around in front of the field there. Let's see if the rest of the crew can get it all sorted as number 13. Sideways out of 3 to 7 has looped it in the middle of the banking. And for drivers and people watching who haven't driven that banked section of the racetrack as well, I got to actually walk the track this morning, and I didn't realize how banked it actually was until I got a chance to walk it. It's quite banked, and again, if you attack it wrong, even in the dry, you could lose the go-kart there. We're 4 wide now, exiting turn number 7 there. This can get pretty dicey early on. You don't want to be 3 wide here because it tightens up towards the exit of the chicane there. Somehow, some way, the drivers are all staying and facing the right direction here, fighting and sawing at the wheel with how slick this racetrack is, and one driver, again, has looped it around in front of the field. The 45 now facing the wrong direction, and this is your first time seeing wet weather driving, especially wet weather driving on slick tires. This is difficult for any driver.
Yeah, these conditions have really shaken it up a bit. In the last 5 minutes, right before even the drivers went out, there was an actual pretty solid downpour that came down, and it really hasn't been something that you think would make the track this wet, but it's just been so consistent in such a long period of time that it's just built up over and over, and all the way from the B and the A main, it's just continuously. As you can see, drivers are struggling. They're going backwards, left and right, left and right.
Yeah, I mean, they were crawling up the hill, and the leader, Sandvik, has spun around in front of the field there, and great job from Hoff and Cummings there to at least avoid Sandvik through turn number 11. Rest of the field is just skating around the racetrack. You can see them fighting to put the power down on the front straightaway here, Frankie. Now, something that is underrated in driving in the wet, especially if you have not done it before, is offline on the straightaways as well to set up your braking points.
100%. These people don't anticipate it coming into the final corner, how much rubber or how much grip that they have to be able to even keep it on track. They all end up onto that final curve, and it puts them off. You know, as you can even see, I honestly think the AstroTurf may even have more grip right now, as you can see.
Yeah, the only problem is when you hit some grass like that, it tends to actually accelerate you. So it really just depends. Obviously, we don't want the drivers just using the grass to their advantage, but you have a really good point. I mean, this surface at this point is reflecting the poles on the circuit with how much standing water this track is producing at this point. And with slick tires, it doesn't evacuate water nearly as much or at all compared to a wet weather tire, which has grooves in it. It's almost like a road tire for those back at home who aren't familiar with wet weather tires, and they just have a lot of grooves to evacuate water. For one, it helps you drive a little bit quicker, puts more grip. 2, it evacuates water, so when it stops raining, that is actually how the track starts to dry, because right now if you look out, if you're here at the racetrack, or if you look at some of our cameras, not a whole lot of sunshine going on here in Winchester. So this track will probably remain this wet, I would say, up until the rest of the day. It's going to be tough for this track to dry up with how much standing water there is. You can see the water getting pushed out almost like they're using a broom to kind of sweep the racetrack there, and on the exit, put power down too quickly, loops it around. It's that easy. That was Hoff there in the 12. He actually was fighting for the lead on the opening couple of laps, and he has now found himself spun around. That's the 16 machine of a day, sitting in an 11th at the moment, and it looks like he is struggling to get this go-kart refired. He must have lost it in the middle portion of the racetrack. That's actually the 18. Apologies there. That's the 18 of Brian Sanders in 17th at the moment, and just struggling to get the go-kart refired, and unfortunately it looks like his day will be cut short a couple of laps here for the C main. Here's a good look at your leaders, and again, very common in wet weather driving. Hugely spread out field, just trying to figure out where you're going. And something else to note, you can see the spray off the back of the go-kart here. When you're behind somebody in the wet, Frankie, how difficult is it sometimes to have any sort of visibility?
100%. You know, I think Campbell's in a good position right now. He has somebody to chase so he can see the line, and then as well with Diamond and them, the problem they have is trying to even find a position. And actually, a driver's taking advantage of the AstroTurf like we talked about the lap before, and they're going to go at it for the lead right here.
Yeah, again, I mean, you blow turn 2.
Oh,
You
backwards.
can straight shot turn 3 as the 49 of Diamond. He was P2 last time around. Loops it through turn number 6. And again, I talked about it before the race even started. It's a race of survival. This is not a race of how fast can I go. A lot of drivers, if all you are accustomed to is indoor driving, K1 speed style, right? If you're not doing the league racing and you're just going there for laps, you're used to doing lap times. That is not important in a race like this. It's all about keeping it on the racetrack. Unless for Travis Myers, who was able to spin and win in the B main. But for some of these drivers here, this is a much closer field than we saw in the B main. And so a spin and win is probably not in the cards here, as I saw that one happening.
Diamond goes around again.
Yeah, just struggling, carrying too much speed down the hill, and momentum is going against you, right? Gravity's not in your favor as well. So once you're going downhill, that rear of the go-kart with, you know, the electric motor, everything's behind the driver's seat. So once you start losing the rear, it's a big pendulum effect, and you might catch it one way, but every reaction has an equal and opposite reaction, right? So you start turning right too much, you lose it the other way, and it loops around.
Right. I mean, we look at Sam Vick. He was in the lead, I think, for the first 2 or 3 laps, and then when the rain started to come down even more, coming into the second to last corner, he lost it. Like you said, it's a race about survival at this point. These drivers are going to try to just keep it on a track, not lose all the momentum that they have. And you know, if you turn a lap that's 5/10 slower than the guy in front of you, and he makes a 10-second mistake with the spin or going off track or anything like that, you're going to be right back up to him.
I got to say, we have a fight for the lead here. There must have been a mistake up front. So for Kolb, he was your leader. Now the 23 of Matthew Campbell there gets to the points around Kolb there on the final corner. So Campbell was sitting, I want to say, 3rd 2 laps ago, fighting with Diamond. We saw Diamond loop around a couple times, and there goes Kolb, spun around in front of the field. You talked about that AstroTurf, and sometimes it can bite you if you grab it the wrong way on entry there. And so now for Matt Campbell, his lead has grown tremendously here, but can he keep it on the racetrack? It is not easy, even by yourself, to navigate this circuit with how wet it is, and that has now unleashed the shackles there of, I believe, Cummings there to go to P2.
Yeah, from 4th to 2nd, you can go from the lead to 5th. It all changes just in a lap with one mistake. I mean, that AstroTurf, I think it's very unforgiving. It's very, but also at the same time, you can, like, when you're in Campbell's position right now, you're grateful for it. You know, you got extra track usage and everything else. Obviously, we've been instructed to stay off of it, but if you look out on track right now, there's not much track to be left to use. Look in the downhill S's right here. It looks like somebody poured soapy water down.
Yeah, exactly. And on our screen, it's actually Max Campbell there, who now leads on board the 23 machine, and you can see him tiptoeing around the circuit. But I got to say, I love the technique here. Smooth hands, wait for the nose to set before applying easy throttle on the entry, and on the exit, sorry. So, again, you'll see some drivers, in this sort of condition, it's really tough to do this style of driving, but we see some drivers kind of chuck the go-kart in, full 90-degree lock, try to shift some weight, use some throttle to rotate, but it's not always the fast way around, as Max Campbell's finding out there, just using the rear to rotate the go-kart. But he seems to have a pretty good feel for that right pedal there, and just understanding exactly how much gas it takes to get the kart to turn in. Tries to diamond the corner slightly there, and it's actually working.
Yeah, and
so
he's patient.
If you look at his exit, and you wonder why he's not tracking out all the way, it's because there's a couple reasons. Red and white curving, paint, slick. 2, all the rubber that builds up on the normal racing line becomes ice when it rains. So you want to actually exit on essentially the marbles, what would have been marble buildup on a normal racetrack. It becomes actually grippier than what rubber would be. If you look on the right side of your screen versus the left side of your screen, it's a lot darker on the left side of your screen. That means there's more grip than the shiny stuff. You don't want to go where there's standing water, where there's a lot more water.
And Sandvik goes back around again.
Then there is grip, and Sandvik, his race started out really good, but unfortunately just unable to navigate the wet weather conditions as well as some of the guys around him. Max Campbell there, all sorts of sideways through turn number 6, really trying to find the limit of the racetrack. Behind him, Cooper Kolb and Zachary Allen are going after it pretty good there. That's a fight for 2nd and 3rd at the moment. So we saw Cooper Kolb go around in turn number 2 in front of Max Campbell. He's found himself back in a position of fights for at least a top 3 finish here in the team main. So it's been a pretty solid comeback drive actually for Cooper Kolb. It goes to show you the lead that they had over the rest of the field, even being able to spin and still at least fights for a top 3 finish. Here is that fight, in fact. So Cooper Kolb ahead of Zachary Allen here. And again, you see Kolb enter low. It's a slightly banked corner. It's got a little bit of camber into it, right? So if you enter too low, your right side tires are on the puddles, your left side tires on the grip. and you're not going to have a whole lot of turning ability on the go-kart there. So I wonder at what point do you see drivers start to shift their line. You would know, Frankie, right? When it rains hard, and you have slick tires especially, but even in the rain tires, on a track that is constantly getting more wet, less wet, you got to try different things every lap.
100%, but even at this point, I don't know if there is another line. I think you just got to be consistent, use the right pedal to be able to turn it around and get it set straight and just keep it on track. You know, looking at the downhill S's, it looks insanely tricky. And just like I said, you know, it's hard. Some people can't get it right every single corner, every single lap. You know, this is difficult. It can catch you off guard because it's changing, you know. Like you said, with the slick tires, all it's doing, it's like a broom. It's just pushing the water in a different direction. And so it changes every single lap. Your line, like, you're not doing the same thing twice.
Yes, we saw Cooper Kolb lose it in front of Zachary Allen. So now Kolb has fallen back to the clutches of Brody Day there in that 4th position. So it's Kolb 3rd, Brody Day in that 4th spot. So Zachary Allen's actually going to claim, I want to say, the 3rd spot at the moment there. Or I had my drivers around. So Kolb is still P2. Zachary Allen's going to fall down the order here at least to 5th, if not a little bit further back. Yeah, he's going to fall to at least 7th at the moment. Let's see where it all stands. Yeah, 7th. So 1 spin, 4 spots lost for Zach Allen. It moves Brody Day up to that 3rd spot. Then it's Diamond and Cummings there in that 5th spot. And considering both Ari Diamond and Joseph Cummings has at least had a moment throughout this race. A top 5 is a top 5 at the end of the day. And for Sandvik as well, a driver that we have talked about a couple times this race, sometimes for the wrong reasons, right? Just losing the go-kart, but not to any fault, because this is as tough as it can get for any driver, let alone people that maybe are more familiar with indoor driving, not used to wet weather driving as much, and what lines to take and how to approach it. So all in all, fantastic driving from everyone out there on the racetrack. And for Max Campbell, he's been the one that's navigated it the best. A 12-second lead over Cooper Kolb. And he's been a driver, we talked about, you know, his technique. You see him fighting it all throughout the straightaway there, just failing to put power down essentially, right? But he seems to have a pretty confident feel for how to use the rear to his advantage and get the kart to rotate as well. Here as, again, the fight continues to brew for that 2nd spot. Cooper Kolb, Brody Day, Ari Diamond. That's the fight for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. It'll continue to brew all throughout. But for Max Campbell, a couple more corners to go, and still testing the limits there as a 23 machine.
Yeah, inches off the paint right there. That's the moment where you're really going to find yourself if you're going to fall.
One more corner to go for Max Campbell. Around the final corner, gets around a lapped cart there. Says a little wave, a little apologies there to get into him in the final corner, but he'll see the checkered flag first. Your C main winner, Max Campbell. Behind him, let's see how they all sorted out in the final couple of corners. A spin there for, I believe, Brody Day. Let's see who crosses the line. P2, it's Ari Diamond from 4th. Who's going to cross the line in 3rd? It looks like Cooper Kolb. Then it's Brody Day. Joseph Cummings is going to round out your top 5. No, sorry, Sandvik there gets around Joseph. So let's see where Joseph fell back to. He must have had a spin in the middle portion of the racetrack right as we cut away from him there. So for Joseph Cummings, his top 5 finish is not going to happen here in the C main. Max Campbell, your winner. He looped it around. Maybe he was doing some donuts. I don't know. But Max Campbell loops it around on the in-lap here. Just goes to show you how slick this portion of the racetrack actually is and how tough it is to drive. I will say, looking at the broadcast booth, I'm starting to see some sunshine. Some lights at the end of the tunnel here at K1 Circuit. Maybe we'll get some sunshine, but I don't know if we'll be able to get some dry driving at all for the rest of the afternoon. C-Main's done. More action to come later on. Next up is your qualifiers for the internationals for the team groups there. So for Max Campbell, putting on a show for us here. Again, just to reiterate, no one transfers from the C main into the International World Championship main, but bragging rights for Matthew Campbell there. He wins over Ari Diamond, Cooper Kolb, Brody Day, Logan Sandvik, your top 5, and the rest of the field from Zachary Allen.